Have you been told that you have a choleric temperament, or maybe you have a loved one who is that temperament, or maybe you have a loved one who is that way? Stay tuned. In this video, we're going to teach you a little bit about the strengths and the weaknesses of the choleric temperament. Welcome to our ongoing teaching series about temperaments. Today we're going to talk about the choleric temperament. Now, the notion or the idea of temperament is based upon the way God made it. It's distinguished from personalities, which are basically masks that we put on. It's the way we are created. And if you have children, certainly you'll know it and just perceive in general that people are different. They're created differently. To do this properly, we're going to use a tool that we call the Arnold profile system. It's something that we use in our counseling center. It's a clinical diagnostic tool developed by Drs. Richard and Phyllis Arnold. It's called the Arnold profile system. I'm going to explain it in the next slide. And basically it's used by counselors all over the world to help counsel people more effectively. When you teach somebody about their strengths and their weaknesses, areas of growth, it can be very, very useful in individual counseling and certainly in marriage counseling. This model, the Arnold profile system, looks at people's needs in three primary areas. One is in the area of inclusion, which has to do with our need to maintain and establish social relationships. How social are we? Are we like to be around a lot of people, or are we primarily loners? The second need that we have is in the area of control. Do we need to be in charge and in control of relationships, or are we very dependent and need a lot of help from others in the area of relationships? And how independent are we? And you can see there's a spectrum there. And the third area is in the area of affection. What's our need for love and affection, and our need to establish and maintain deep personal relationships? So is inclusion, control, and affection are the three aspects of the system. And you can see, as people can be different in each area, it's very rare that somebody is, for instance, choleric in all three areas. The Arnold profile system measures our inborn temperament, the way God made us. As I said, not the personality, which is more of a mask that people put on. What it does is it alerts us to tendencies, and it can help us counsel people, because you can see the strengths of the temperament, which we use to bless others, and there's weaknesses there too, you see. And if we take ownership of those and say, wow, that's a weakness, Lord, help me, transform me there. And it also helps us in the realm of spiritual warfare, because we can see and understand better how the demonic realm might try to attack us. So there's strengths and weaknesses. There's no better, and as part of that, we cannot use our temperament as an excuse for sin or bad behavior. Say, well, that's just the way God made me. It's like, no, if there's weaknesses there, then God wants to change us and transform us into the likeness of Christ. There's no better or worse temperaments, just different ones, and strengths and weaknesses associated with each one. People sometimes like to look at their favorite characters in the Bible and try to maybe discern what temperament type they were primarily. And in the case of a choleric, many people look at Paul, the Apostle Paul, and say he was very likely a choleric type of temperament. The idea is, and where this is useful, is when you understand the needs, you see, they must be met in godly ways, or problems and sinful behaviors will result if they're not met, or rather met in ungodly ways. Here are the temperament types. There's 5 temperament types in this model. As I say, we're doing videos on each one of these. Today we're focusing on the choleric temperament in the lower right hand corner. And the cholerics typically express a high need in each of those areas, but actually have a low need. For instance, if somebody's choleric in inclusion, they look like they're very social, but in reality they have a very low need for socialization. So that's the terminology of how it's used. The cholerics express a high need and have a low need. And general characteristics, if you like generalizations admittedly, of each temperament type is that you can see them up there: melancholy, supine, sanguines, and whatnot, phlegmatics. And once again, we have videos on these other ones that come. But the cholerics tend to be the dominant, take charge kind of temperament. And what are the traits associated with that? Well, they come across typically as very confident people, very outgoing, They make great leaders. They're able to do a bunch of things and multitask, if you like. They're very strong-willed, task-oriented, and if you like, the three-letter or the three-word moniker that typically describes it many times is they are very good at getting things done. Okay, take charge, confident, know what they want, and go out and get it. What are the strengths associated with that temperament? They appear many times, they come across as very friendly. They understand their need for people to help them get things done. Tend to make very intuitive decisions. Once again, very good at just making the right decision quickly, take on responsibilities very well. Tend to be very optimistic, very task-oriented, to typically see the end and where they want to go, and they're very typically optimistic about getting things done. And once again, in terms of expressing a lot, they typically are able to express a lot of love and affection, and that comes across. Now, what are the weaknesses associated with the choleric temperament? These are typical weaknesses. They be just the nature of their temperament. They tend to be very hot-tempered and easily frustrated. When they get angry, it gets expressed externally. Okay, it doesn't go inside like some of the other temperaments. They'll have a tendency, a weakness here, unless, once again, these weaknesses, unless transformed or changed, their tendency is to use bad behavior to motivate people to get things done. Again, because they're task-oriented, many times they will associate with weak people who they can use to help them accomplish their goals and end up resenting them afterwards for their weakness. Very susceptible to burnout. They will just do it. They'll do the work. They'll keep at it until the task gets done. So and take on a lot of responsibilities, and therefore can be very easily led into burnout. Very self-centered, one of the weaknesses, and this is important for if you have a loved one like this, is they typically will accept love and want love on their terms. What's the need? They might express a lot of love and affection, but they don't have a great need for it themselves, and they want it on their terms. So those are the weaknesses of the temperament, and we've touched on the strengths, the traits, general traits, and the weaknesses. We encourage temperament analysis for all of our clients. If you've never had it done, we encourage you to explore it, visit our website, or certainly you can find it elsewhere on the internet. More information on these temperaments. Get your profile done. We do them worldwide. It involves a counseling session as well. We go over it and you end up with your own personal profile report. Hope this has been helpful for you. Please watch our other videos on temperaments. Thank you.